Hi lovelies, welcome back. So this is the last video before the Christmas break, and it is the 18th today, and I'm wanting to talk a little bit about what I have noticed for myself lately, as in this past week of holiday festivities and all of that, and also kind of the lesson that I think that we can glean from this, because there's a few things that I've seen in myself this week that I'm like, oh, that's interesting and might be helpful to other people. So one of the things that I have noticed is that my wisdom has felt like it's been asleep in a certain area. So there's a behavior that I know isn't healthy for me, and I want to stress before I reveal what it is that this is a behavior that's not healthy for me. This video isn't about whether us humans collectively should be engaging in this behavior. This video is not about a judgment call to, it's really not about the thing it's about. It's just for me, Shannon, I know that my engagement with this behavior isn't healthy and necessary. And that is that I've been eating a lot of meat lately. So again, this is not about meat, this is not about veganism, this is not about, before you think, oh God, this is going to get very political. It's not. I just know that for me, I have in the past 8 years kind of waxed and waned between vegetarianism, pescatarianism, flexitarianism, and just being a meat eater. And there's been varying, degrees and timelines of that since, 2010 or whatever. So for me personally, I know that eating meat daily isn't healthy for me. My body doesn't like eating meat daily. I don't feel like it's good environmentally for me to be eating that quantity of meat that frequently. So for me, it's something that my wisdom is very clear on, that this is not a good idea. And yet my wisdom has felt, if I'm being totally honest, felt like completely asleep lately. There has been, whether it's potlucks, Christmas parties, get-togethers with friends, all of the stuff that I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of us are kind of used to or blessed to have around this holiday season. We can see patterns coming up in ourselves that we don't think is healthy. And for some people like me, it may be, daily meat consumption. For other people, it can look like too much alcohol, too much, over shopping or overworking or overeating, or just, sweets are a big one. Like I said, booze is a big one. Like it doesn't always look the same for all of us, but there tends to be this thing that happens around the holidays where we kind of engage in things that we know isn't that healthy for us. We know better is the thing. As we're doing it, we're like, I don't even know if I want to be doing this, but we do it anyway. And I really had to go back to, because my initial reaction was a lot of judgment and a lot of guilt. It was a lot of, obviously self-judgment, being really hard on myself. Like, what is wrong with you? You know better. You know this is bad for your health. You know this is bad for the environment. You know that this isn't something that you want to be doing. And yet I'm doing it anyway. Every day I seem to be eating, whether it's prosciutto, salami, bacon, chicken, fish, eating it every day. So I'm like, what the hell? So there's a lot of judgment there. And then underneath the judgment, a lot of guilt, because it's kind of like, well, I should know better, and this is an animal I'm eating, just a ton of stuff around, privileges came into that too, like, oh, the fact that I'm privileged enough to live in a place where my food choices are just whatever I feel like them being. There's nothing really stopping me from eating whatever I feel like, and the feasting and all of that. So there was a lot of that at first glance, and whatever your thing is around the holidays, if you have one, I get that it's going to all look the same. It's going to kind of look like judgment and being a bit critical is the way to go. It's going to look kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, if I want to drink less, I obviously have to cut back on drinking. I have to be on myself about that. If I want to eat less meat, if I want to not buy so much stuff, if I want to, it looks like we have to get down on ourselves about this. Like, or else we're all just going to be workaholics or alcoholics, or, gamble too much, watch too many scratch and wins, watch too much porn, whatever it is. Like, it looks like it's on us and it's our fault this is happening. But I want to stress first and foremost that it's not your fault. like it's like 100% not. It's a totally human and normal thing to reach towards, you know, overindulgence in anything when we're feeling insecurity, or when we're feeling like our thinking is more than thinking, or when it's just so kind of, you know, pushed on us and celebrated. In Western society, we celebrate over drinking, overeating, over shopping, over consuming, to the point that it's almost weird when we think that we're going to step back and somehow not engage to it the full extent that everybody around us and everybody else at the party is. So first of all, it's not about you. It's not an individual responsibility that I want you to bear. And second of all, we have to recognize that the judgment's not actually helping us. It seems at first glance like it does. It's a very common reaction to have, but it's not helping us. So after having a few days this week where I've been in a lot of self-judgment and a lot of guilt around those unhealthy choices, I stepped back to remember, and it was actually a good friend of mine that reminded me of this, that isn't going to get me nowhere. And like is the nature of, you know, of just life, of the school of life, is that we keep learning lessons again and again. So when her and I were talking about this, I realized, oh my gosh, I not only know this deep down, so it was so lovely to be reminded of it, but in fact, I've written about this. Like in my last book on compassion, I talked about how approaching things with that sense of judgment and with that sense of like getting down on ourselves is not conducive to hearing our wisdom. It's not, you know, my wisdom's not going to wake back up and put me back to a healthy relationship with my diet if I'm not, you know, leaving it space to come through, if I'm getting down on myself, if I'm bogging down my mind with a lot of, you know, judgment and hatred and you should be better and pressure. Like none of that is going to allow the space and the freedom for wisdom to come and show me differently. And otherwise, I'm just creating this big fight against myself. It's like these two warring sides of like, I'm getting down on myself because I'm eating too much meat, and then I feel bad. And then what do I do when I feel bad? I see this platter of prosciutto in front of me, and I think, oh, that salty stuff, you know, prosciutto is my weakness meat, and that's the one that I'm going to indulge in when it's placed in front of me. Of course I am. Of course you are. Of course we all are. This is the, you know, it's the human condition. So I thought, you know, that I would start by kind of setting the context, and that I would read you a bit of the book and how I talk about it in the book, because obviously it's a bit more kind of clearly stated and eloquent than I can be sometimes live on these videos, where I kind of click record and then just talk about what occurs to me to say. So without further ado, I'm going to read a little bit of True Nature series Compassion. So chapter 4, Feeling Compassion for People Who Don't Deserve It. As is common whenever we consider something new, our minds love to jump to the extremes. But what about suicide bombers, rapists, child molesters, rhino poachers, bear hunters? Surely these people don't deserve compassion. They deserve a good dose of punishment and perhaps a collective social efforts to change their behavior. Or maybe we see the possibility for compassion when our partner forgets to buy mangoes for taco night, when that was literally the sole reason he went to the store. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, but we don't see it for serious things like infidelity, violence, or abuse. Here's the thing about compassion. Compassion is not weakness, it's not idiocy, and it is certainly not covering our eyes and our ears and just pretending like there isn't problems that need solutions, harm that needs to be mitigated, or boundaries that need to be enacted, or things that need to change. Compassion is a clear, calm, stable, benevolent, wise understanding. It does not mean that actions do not or should not have consequences, but compassion simply allows us to see the situation clearly, free from distortion, so that we may have the wisdom to take action when appropriate. Seeing yourself and others through the eyes of compassion definitely does not mean that people should stay in violent marriages, molest children, poach endangered species, or let serial murderers roam free. But compassion does clear the mud off our windshield so we can see what's truly happening and have the wisdom, common sense, and creativity to deal with it effectively and appropriately. So in a way, compassion is the first step to seeing clearly what needs to be done or what can be done. And until we calm down to the wise, settled place in ourselves, we won't be able to see the solutions or the healthy path forward. Creativity, resilience, and helpful solutions are innate. They are expressions of our true nature. But when we have a busy mind full of ideas, judgments, concepts, emotions, and perceptions that look true, we don't always feel connected with these innate resources. Compassion allows us to let all of that unhelpful thinking flow through so that we can return to clarity. In a state of clarity, we will notice the common sense decisions to be made, the actions to be taken, or the solutions to try. And so it's great to have these conversations. If you're fortunate enough, like I am, to have friends who you can have these conversations with, where you can show up with them and say, oh my God, I'm feeling absolutely terrible about my diet choices lately. I'm feeling absolutely terrible about, whatever unhealthy behavior we're engaging in, and have somebody who can actually point us back to the truth that we need to look first to compassion before we can see what's obvious, see what's common sense, see what's clear. That is such a blessing. It is such a blessing. And I hope if you don't have somebody in your life that can do that, that these videos kind of provide that for you, that you can tune in weekly, and whether it's a question you send in, I love, love, love getting requests. So please send those if you want to. Or whether it's just seeing something new in these topics, seeing something that, I share of my life experience, but we are all so similar, and we don't often see that we're all the same, even though the details are different. So whatever it is this holiday season for you, whether it's just, whether it's something that I talked about in this video, whether it's something else, see if you can look first to compassion. See if you can look first to, am I being gentle with myself? Am I in that forgiving, grounded, settled, calm state where I can look and say, yeah, Shannon, you're eating way too much meat, but I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to criticize you for it. You're not a bad person. This isn't your fault. You're just doing something that you know is unhealthy. Okay, where do we go next? And that changes so much, and that does so much for us. So, as always, thank you for being here with me. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, I love getting them. Please leave those below. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. And I will be back with you the first Friday in January. So take care, my dears. Be well and speak soon. Lots of love. Bye.